Now, as someone who knows a lot about the Sacred Heart of Jesus, Brandon Otto is the translator of a new book called Not of the World, 20 Lessons on Following Christ Without Compromise. It's a collection of essays by Saint Claude La Colombière, who lived in the mid-1600s. Saint Claude was an early devotee of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Brandon, thanks so much for being with us. How you doing?
Doing all right. Thanks for having me.
We're thrilled you're with us, all the way from Missouri. We love Missouri. Tell us about St. Claude's connection to Saint Margaret Mary and the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
So St. Claude was a Jesuit, and the first place he was stationed after he finished his formation was in Paray-le-Monial, which is the town where St. Margaret Mary lived. And he became her spiritual director and her confessor, and the first person that she told about her revelations of the Sacred Heart.
His essays in the book cover many topics, including marriage, educating children, and almsgiving, to name just a few. Which topic was most impactful for you as you were reading and translating his words?
Probably when he discusses riches and wealth. It's a theme that comes up a lot in this work, and a lot of it is about how you have to, if you're blessed with riches, you have to use them properly, but also be careful, because he talks about that when you have riches, you have too many roses and too many thorns. So there's lots that you can do with the riches, but also lots of ways that they can lead you into sin.
How did you get involved with the translating, and how difficult is that? What does it involve?
I just picked up translating partly for fun to learn languages, and then I figured out I was good at it. And so I started getting contact with publishers. And for me, it's pretty easy. I find it easier than writing stuff on my own.
So can you do a bunch of different languages?
I can do French, Spanish, Latin, and then my Greek's a little rusty, but I've done some Greek too.
So that's four. That's four more than me, and English is a challenge too. So,
you got a lot of work to do, Jim.
I've got a lot. You'll have to translate what I'm saying right now if we keep this up much longer. One of St. Claude's longest essays was about forgiving enemies. What are some of the points he made about the importance of that?
He gets very strict on that one, that if you don't forgive your enemies, you will be damned. He does not mince words on that one. And he talks about how even though the desire for revenge is a natural thing when we've been hurt by someone, you still have to push past that in order to forgive.
And you touched on this a little bit, but what did St. Claude say about how difficult it is for people, and especially nowadays who are attached to riches, to be close to God?
He definitely talks about how, you're just wrapped up in those riches. It's so easy to just go waste your life. A lot of times he talks about people going to parties and spending all their wealth just to make themselves look pretty so they can attract people. So he definitely keeps talking about how you need to pull back from that, make sure you're focused on God and not just on pleasing others.
Now, you've also translated another work by St. Claude called Seeking the Heart of Christ. If you could talk about Saint Claude La Colombière face to face, what would you ask him?
I'd want to ask him more about his devotion to the Sacred Heart, because a lot of that was pretty private. It doesn't come up in either this book or the other book. It's really in some of his private writings and in his letters back and forth with St. Margaret Mary, because he was stationed in England for a while, so they just communicated via letters. I'd like to know more about what he thought about her revelations, and if he had lived longer, if he would have done more to really promote them.
Brandon, was there any wow moment for you as you were translating this and going through it? Was there any moment where you just said, oh my goodness, this is unbelievable?
I mean, that section on forgiving enemies really struck me, just especially about how he didn't just make it sound so easy. He talked about how natural it is to want revenge when we've been hurt by someone, that it's just part of human nature and that we still have to work to overcome that. That one really struck me.
And I think it's something we all have to work on too, right? I mean, someone hurts you, it's easy just to say, I'm never going to talk to them, I'm never going to forgive them today. So I'd say to our people who are watching at home right now, don't fall into that trap. St. Claude would be very angry at you. Make sure that you actually forgive those people, open up your heart, and it'll make you better. Well, we're going to have a book giveaway later in the show, but in the meantime, where can people buy Not of the World or Seeking the Heart of Christ?
They can buy them at Tanbrook's website.
Well, thank you so much, Brandon, for being with us today. Enjoy beautiful Missouri, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.